Hey everybody, this is Teri Kerr, Executive Coach and Empowerment Strategist for the Unstuck Duck Coaching. Welcome to my podcast, to my first episode. Here is where I'm going to be showcasing the stories of extraordinary survivors who have made the conscious decision to pivot and thrive. So today I have with us my friend Terri Welsh. Terri's a breast cancer survivor from the beautiful Comox Valley on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, which is also where I'm from. And I just want to say thank you for joining me. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Terri. I'm honored I'm your very first.
Yes, I know. Well, I wanted to have a friendly face, not that I have found an unfriendly face.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to share my story.
Really happy that you're here. And I think it's going to be a great, this is going to be really easy. We're going to just have a conversation. And I'm really excited to hear your story. For our listeners and people watching, one of the things that really struck me about Terri when I first met her, first of all, she was diagnosed, you were diagnosed before me. So when were you diagnosed?
2000 and what are we now? 2013.
2013.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So I was
7 years this year.
January 2015. And the very first thing that everybody did was like, you got to read Terri Welsh's blog. You have to read her blog. And she's so inspiring. And she reminds me so much of you. And my mom actually sent it to me as well. So tell me a little bit about yourself. We're going to start right at the beginning.
Okay.
So tell me a bit about yourself, where you grew up, what you're doing.
Well, I'm a coast girl. I was born in Newfoundland and moved to this coast when I was 8. And I joke, and my parents got divorced when I was 8, and literally my mom, we got as far away as possible. I laugh about it now, but unless we went to Gold River, we couldn't get much farther away from the East Coast. And so I did most of my schooling here, and I went back to New Brunswick for high school and some university, and then came back. So I'm kind of a West Coast, East Coast girl.
Right on.
Yeah.
So what did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She did have a real estate license for a while, but for the most part, she was did a lot of volunteer work. When I was living with my dad, he went back to school actually and became an industrial engineer. He was a RCMP when I was, I guess he was air traffic control when I was born, but before I was born, he was RCMP, then air traffic control, and then industrial engineer.
Wow.
He was a good turner. Yeah.
Right on. So you were diagnosed with breast cancer at 2013. Did you have any family history or anything kind of?
None whatsoever.
No. Do you
Zero.
want to tell us your story?
Certainly. I turned 40. I'll be 47 this year. And I turned 40 and I went into my doctor. So I said to her, so it's, it's that time, new glasses. And I do have glasses. I just took them off for new glasses and time for a mammogram. And she said, well, we're not actually recommending mammograms now till you're 50. Then I was quite surprised, and she's like, but you don't need a referral, you can just call the number if you're over 40. And so I honestly don't know what made me do it, but I just thought, what, I felt like this was what you're supposed to do at 40. So I made the appointment and went in for my first mammogram, and everything seemed fine. I left, and then I, like, within a day, I got a call from my doctor saying that they saw some irregularities and they wanted to book me in for another one. So I went in for another one. This all in, a very short time period. And then back to my doctor for the results. And I was told that I had calcifications that were suggestive of DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, which it just means it hasn't spread. It's still in the spot it started. So then I had to go to confirm that. I had to go and have a needle biopsy where they drill into your breast basically with an auger and pull out a core sample. And sure enough, I had DCIS. So which meant I would need a lumpectomy followed by radiation, which radiation to me, that was the most fearful part for me because I couldn't do it in town. I had to go to Victoria for 6 weeks. I was 6 or 8 weeks. So that was kind of like, okay, I could get through the surgery and whatnot. But as it turned out, I did have a lumpectomy, and they didn't get clear margins. It was bigger than they had anticipated. So I went in for a second lumpectomy, and they still didn't get clear margins. So then the next step was a mastectomy, and that was like when you're not expecting, basically stage 0 cancer, right? With DCIS, it hasn't spread, and so to be told I had to have a complete mastectomy was shocking. So that's what I did on November 29th, 2013.
Okay. And so you didn't have chemo or anything?
I didn't have to, luckily. And going into the surgery, I didn't know that either. My surgical oncologist said there may be a chance that we might want to do some radiation or chemo after to just to be double sure. But they took, I think, 4 lymph nodes and none were infected. So she felt good with just having the mastectomy, which I was very happy about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the most interesting things that I found in my journey, I really don't like the word journey.
Yeah, that's funny. I had a lady said that the other day. Might have actually been you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but was that, they think it's one thing, and then that once they actually get in it, they don't know. They really don't know. Right. I had the same thing. My mastectomy, when my mammogram, they found a little 8 millimeter tumor. Mm-hmm. But it was when they went in to take out that little 8 millimeter tumor, it was attached to a 3 centimeter DCIS. So the 8 millimeter was the invasive ductal carcinoma. And then it was attached to this bigger one that was non-cancerous. Okay. And so when they removed that, then they did the pathology on it and found out that it was triple positive, which I'm not sure. I think yours was estrogen.
Mine's estrogen positive, yes.
Positive, yeah. So I had the triple positive. So that's why I had to do chemo and the whole shebang. Okay. And then they ended up, my oncologist had spidey senses to say, because that didn't show up on your mammogram, I want to do an MRI. And that's when they found I had 5 other little tumors that were little cookie crumbs.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was that in between that, like, I don't really know. And then, there's something else.
Yeah. Well, and it's the part, the part of the journey is, the not knowing. And I remember my doctor, she really reassured me that she's like, Terri, we do cancer well in Canada. She said, if you had to have a hip replacement or something like that, not so well, but and I must say but it seems like a week seems like forever when you're waiting for results, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you did your mastectomy, you had reconstruction.
I did have reconstruction. I chose to have, what's that?
Did you do immediate reconstruction?
I did immediate reconstruction. I did a little research. That wasn't something that was an option here in Comox. So I did some research and found an amazing surgeon in Vancouver. And she worked with a surgical oncologist, and they did it all together. And I also chose not to have an implant for various reasons. I had a broken arm and had plates that I had to have emergency removed. So I'm like, I don't want anything foreign in my body. So I actually used my belly fat. So they reconstructed my breast so I said, I'm the ultimate in green, reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Yeah, I had the same, the Dieppe flap.
Yes.
Reconstruction, same thing. So, okay, well that's, and you haven't had anything since?
No, a couple revision surgeries after the fact. I think I had altogether through the journey, there were 6 surgeries.
Okay, and tamoxifen?
And that was an option for me because I am estrogen positive, but I actually chose not to. My oncologist kind of said it was because of the stage of my cancer and history and the rest of it. She kind of said that, like, she wasn't pushing it. She said it's a personal choice, but you have to outweigh how you're going to feel with the benefits, right? So I chose to go more of a natural route and went to a naturopath. And
yeah.
Are you on tamoxifen? Or
I lasted about 3 months on tamoxifen.
Yeah.
I had really bad side effects. I had the trifecta of anxiety, depression, and rage.
Oh, yeah, it's nasty.
Yeah, it wasn't how I wanted to be. And I was like, you know what? It was actually kind of the start of my pivot for me, because I had to really think about what was important to me. And it was more important to me that I am, if I live less long, that at least that's time, instead of living longer in really shitty times.
Yeah, quality of life. And that's exactly what it was for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't regret it. I got my ovaries out though. That was one thing.
Oh, okay.
That was the best decision I've ever made. I can't believe they don't offer that to people as soon as they've had their kids.
Yeah. And you didn't go into menopause, like have menopausal.
I skipped it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, just skipped it.
Yeah.
I get hot flashes maybe if I drink red wine. And maybe not very often, but that's about it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but the big thing was that it just totally leveled me out emotionally. Yeah. I didn't have all the ups and downs of PMS and all that.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
And if I'm ever feeling grouchy, I'll just go have some edamame.
Yeah.
To increase my...
Get a little soy in there. Yeah.
I do not advise that. That's not what I'm supposed to say, but whatever. So so the next thing I wanted to ask you is, at what point did you realize that you no longer wanted to do what you were doing before you got sick? In fact, actually, backing up, what were you doing before you got sick? For career or?
Well, I'm actually in the same career. Yeah. I work for a realtor, and I've actually changed realtors. So, there was a little bit of stress at my old office and a whole lot less stress at my new office. And that was actually leaving the old office and going to work for a new realtor was, part of the you know what, I can't do this. Right. So, and that was a very good change, but I'm still in the real estate industry as an assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what point though, we've talked about this a little bit before, about looking at who you were before you got sick versus who you are after.
Yeah.
So where's the biggest change for you in that?
Well, it's hard to say when it actually, it wasn't like a light bulb moment, but it was when I started kind of, started doing Relay for Life, and I started connecting with my peers in the, cancer survivors, and it started, like I said, I just wanted to do more around connecting with people, and like I said, you said, I don't see myself as an inspiration and any of that, but I hear that a lot. And I've started a group on Facebook, and I think the last time I looked, we were up to 68 members, and we're all cancer survivors or cancer warriors. Some of us.
And which one's that? The Dancing Through the Fire?
So that's my personal page. The Bonded by Breast Cancer is a private group that I have. So yeah, 60, I think there's 68 of us on there. And all breast cancer except one who's skin cancer. But we let her join. But yeah, I guess my biggest pivot moment, I love that term too, by the way, because it's like, you don't really think of it that way but it was leaving my marriage.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. It's so easy to talk about.
I know. Well, and that's the thing. Like, one of the analogies that my oncologist told me was women our age. So I was 41 when I was diagnosed, and we take this moment to look at every rock in our riverbed and pick up each one, and hold it in our hand and really look at it and say, is this what I want for my life?
Yeah.
Do I want to be volunteering in this organization? Do I want this career? Do I want this relationship? So tell me a little bit about how that happened for you.
Yeah, it was honestly, Terri, it was one of those moments we were just sitting around. We were actually talking about finances. We were making a big purchase, and we were just sitting on the couch. It was a Sunday afternoon, and talking about that's heavy stuff. And I honestly just looked at him. I said, "Are you happy?" And he said to me, he's like, "No." And I'm like, I literally said, "Then what the beep are we doing?" And we were quite, it was very amicable about it. And he actually moved out the next day. Right. And, obviously we weren't like done that day, but it was, we took our time, and I lived in the house for a while, and we remained friends. We've now been separated. It'll be 2 years in July. Our 23rd anniversary was July 1st of 2 years ago. So we were married 23 years and 9 days. So, and I know he's in a better place. I know I'm in a better place. But it's because of cancer, not in spite of cancer, right? It's something that, had we separated possibly before cancer or during the journey, we probably wouldn't have remained friends. But because we, it actually grew our relationship closer and stronger. And I think we could step away from it once we knew that we'd given it all.
Yeah. So how did you feel once obviously there's some emotion around the relationship and, having that grieving of that loss of that,
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you have said to me is, that you feel more complete now.
Yes, definitely.
Right? So how did you feel when you had that, obviously it's not an ideal, like it's not our plastic life that we expect is going to happen. But, when you had that realization that you could move forward into a new iteration of you.
Yeah, it makes me realize what all the things I can live without, and not, from the outside looking in, I suppose it was, we had a lovely house and drove nice cars and vacations, 3 or 4 times a year and blah, blah, blah. Right. And it looked great from the outside, but honestly, it wasn't great. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't thriving, if you will. Right. We were great friends but now, but there's more to a relationship than that. Like a big word for me is intimacy, and connection, and then realizing now I have that in my life. It's like, oh, wow, that's what I was missing.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't need the big house and and the vacations over, mind you, I'm leaving for Mexico tomorrow, but there's still things that, you prioritize your things. So, I don't have my lashes done and my nails done and all of those things. So then I can give up those things that are honestly just frivolous anyway. But although I did get my nails done for going to Mexico. So
why not?
Like I say, you prioritize different things in different ways now.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, it's more about being happy, really. It's such a broad word, and I think people throw it around a lot, but like if you don't realize you're unhappy until you're happy, right? Because you're doing life, you're grocery shopping, you're doing whatever with the kids, and maybe having a date night with your husband every now and then. But and then you think you're happy because you have this lovely house and not wanting for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then you step back away from that and then kind of prioritize your life, and then you become happy, right? You're like, oh wow,
yeah.
It's almost like happiness feels like.
It's almost like a contentment. It's like deeper. It's deeper than a happy.
Yeah, like contentment to me is not a happy word.
No. Okay.
It's kind of like you're just content. Like I think for me, there's more.
Fulfilled.
Being content.
That word?
Yeah, fulfilled maybe is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why, but content just to me has a negative connotation almost because. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. But,
yeah. Okay, so tell me about so one of the things that I've seen you're doing is this Multitasking Ninja, which I just love.
That came about as, I don't want to say necessity, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to have to start, when you go from a double income to a single income, and, I don't work full time. I just work part time as well. So, it's like, okay, I have a lot of time on my hands, and, it would be nice to have a little extra money. So what am I good at? And it was actually my breast cancer sisters that said, Terri, you're good at organizing. You're good at, like I said, doing these fundraisers. And the Multitasking Ninja grew from that. right? And it's, my business card says everything from, what's it say? It's, do a little bit of social media and graphic and promo, event planning, house and pet sitting, life organizing, and chaos coordinating. So, and then pretty much anything you can think of, the multitasking ninja can do. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Well, and some people, that type of work, it's super, from what I understand, of course, this is not me. Which that's not true. That's not true. I've had my days when I've done 1,000 things in a day and done them really well and been able to multitask. And I love that the completion of a to-do list is very satisfying for me.
I'll actually write things on the list that I might not have had on there, but I did, and then I can tick it off.
And then now that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm realizing that details, I'm not as good at details as I thought I was, but allowing myself the freedom to do that, to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think when you're creating something like that, like I know so many people that could use a multitasking ninja in their life. Mm-hmm. Like I'm planning a trip to Seattle next weekend. I'm going down for a course, and just putting it, trying to figure out what's the cheapest way for me to get there, stay there, be there, and come back without, it being $1,000 weekend.
Right. I like traveling on the internet is one of my favorite things to do, and going and find. I just love doing that, and I'll have like lines and sheet. I'm like, okay, this much, and okay, but then if we so I say like the thrill of even just planning a vacation is almost as fun and fulfilling as it is to go on the vacation.
Yeah, and sometimes it's more so. You go there. I just had a girlfriend who went down to Mexico. She'd been planning it all year, and it was a real letdown.
Oh, yeah.
And so then she felt even doubly, double suck because the vacation sucked, but also she had, had so much fun, just the planning part.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also it's sucking when you're in Mexico sucks even worse.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah. So what were some of the, well, I'm going to switch this up from the original question I was going to ask, but when you decided that you wanted to do the multitasking ninja thing, like that building of that, what were some of the decisions that you had to go through to make that happen? Like when did you do like your values exercise, or was it just some completely organic?
Completely organic. It just kind of grew from, starting to make gift baskets at work for clients. And, someone asked me to, I can't even remember. It was probably house sit. And, just at lunch one day, and my girlfriend says like, yeah, like you should do this. And so, yeah, just kind of like, basically I made business cards and said, okay, let's do this. Started a Facebook page. And yeah. So, I mean, the biggest hurdle probably for me is self-promotion.
Yep.
Because I'm not
well, it's a comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. So, have I been pushing it as much as, right? It's just right now it's kind of word of mouth, and yeah.
Well, I can help you with that.
Thank you.
How much time do you have? Let's see.
Yeah, I have actually, and it's good to be able to fill my time because sometimes I do, I'm also an overthinker terribly. So it's good to have, something else to, and to also touch on my creative side, right? Because you don't, in an office setting, you don't really get that.
Yeah, I get that. I have to have some form of creativity in my day to feel fulfilled. Otherwise, I'll go on the internet and create drama in some chat group.
Yeah.
My own other form of creation.
Yeah.
So, do you still have any fear of recurrence or anything? Does that?
Every day.
Yeah.
Well, not every day. I mean, it's certainly subsiding, but my yearly mammogram is always like like PTSD walking. It's a little bit different now for me because we have a new hospital. So it's not the same room, but it's still the same, it's still that
same process.
Right. But so I do, if I could if I could go back almost 6 years and have both my breasts removed, I would do that.
Yeah.
Just because, and at the time, Angelina Jolie had just had her, what do they call it? She was a previvor and had her a double mastectomy. And my surgical oncologist, I asked her that question: is this, is it any benefit to me to get them both done? And she's like, well, I remember saying it's the trendy thing to do right now, and it's not necessary, right? Because that was all in the media at the time, and I just thought, okay, right. So that it just made sense. Okay, we'll keep, but hindsight is 2020, right? So, and then I wouldn't have that fear, right?
Yeah.
And
I actually had a double mastectomy after I was done chemo and radiation and my first lumpectomy. So I had it was funny, my radiation oncologist, who's now a very good friend of mine, she's like, we're kind of taking the, killing a mosquito with a cement truck kind of technique, but you're young, you're strong, you're able to do that, and I was up for it. And it was, that last surgery, I actually had an infection in my stomach wound from the damp flap.
Yeah.
And that was when I had my first snap moment. I was like, oh my God, I just can't do this anymore. I am done.
Yeah.
And that was 2 years in by the time I started. Right. Yeah. So,
Well, and the same for after 6 surgeries, I could probably have another revision surgery on my reconstructed breast, but it was kind of like, ugh, I don't want to. You know what? They're cousins, not sisters, and I'm happy with that. So, but now I'm out. I'm far enough out now. I might go back and talk to my surgeon, but yeah, I know at the time you're like, I am so done with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's only so much you can go through.
Yeah.
So when you are thinking about living your best life, how do you balance that fear and that living, desire to live your best life? And
well, and said it's a day. It's not. I did say every day I worry about it, but it's not a daily occurrence for me. And as the time goes by, it's less and less. So yeah, I try not to. It such is life, right? There's nothing that me worrying more about it's going to change. So that's what I think, and I just breathe and I'm like, yeah, why worry? And it's hard for an overthinker to I just step back and I say, okay, what am I changing by sitting here and worrying about it? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So what would, if you could go back in time, what would be a nugget of information that you wish you knew?
I think the biggest, and I'm seeing it now, being able to support other people, women going through their journey, is to surround yourself with like-minded people and people that get it. I had no one that got it, right? Even I didn't my stepdad died of cancer, and so it was close. But until it's in your own home, it's just a totally different beast, right? It's it's a family member or friend, you can remove yourself from that, and it's not when you're in your home, it's not there. But when it's in your home, you can't get away from it. So that's something, having a larger peer group to be able to talk to and support. And I actually started volunteering for the Canadian Cancer Society as a peer mentor, because when I was trying to decide what to do with my reconstruction and my mastectomy and everything else, I was it's a wonderful organization called Cancer Connections, and they actually paired me with a lady that had the same surgery that I ended up opting to have. So that helps tremendously. But at the time, I'm 40, and I think she was 65, right? There was no one in my age group that I could connect with. So that's why you had to be a year out before you could to volunteer for them. But I phoned and said, you need someone my age. So I do that and mentor survivor people going through.
Yeah, it's the support piece is really interesting. And I think that's why I've started doing what I'm doing now, right? Because I was lucky enough to be in Victoria, so I had access to go to the counseling at the cancer agency. But as soon as, and I was actually doing really well, and then my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I went back to the counseling at the cancer agency and said, hey, I'm still in your system. I need to talk to somebody because now this is bringing up all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, well, you're kind of past it now. So maybe go from
you're ever past it.
Right. And I'm like, oh, and so
that's coming from someone that doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right.
It works there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to hack them at all because they were lovely and awesome, but they're just overworked. And it's, there's so many people that need their services, but there wasn't anybody, and I haven't found anybody that is working a role like what I'm doing, where I'm coaching people through it. Like, and I'm not looking at working with current cancer patients, but really working with survivors like you and me to be like, hey, you're looking to pivot. You're not happy where you are. I want to give you permission to be a different iteration of yourself. Like you don't have to go back to who you were before you got sick. And
which I think is amazing.
Yeah. And it was as soon as I went through the coaching program and started to really think about it, I remember, you'll laugh at this. I had a conversation with one of my coaches. And I said, I'd like to get into helping with cancer survivors, but I just don't want to go back and live in cancer land anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, what if me, this like Uber manifester, brings it back?
Yeah.
I had this total irrational fear. If I talked about it, that it would come back. Yeah. And he was so funny. He's like, so let me just get what I'm hearing. You think that if you help cancer survivors, you're going to get it again? And I'm like, he goes, it's not contagious, right?
Yeah.
Like, bless your heart. Like it was a shift. And it's these blocks that we have in our brain where it's like, there's a fear and it's like this wall and I can't see anything irrationally because my nose is up against that wall and I can't see the wall itself.
Right.
And so for me, it was taking that step back and realizing I had so much more to offer than my fear was allowing me.
Right.
And
good for you for stepping through your fear. And and that fear can be so debilitating. And but once you pass that, like you said, that brick wall and get past that fear, you're like, oh yeah, there's all this life over here, right?
Exactly. Tell me about the voice of choice that you were involved with.
So I can't even remember how I connected with that. It was actually Multitasking Ninja that, and Mia Jarrett, who is also a coach, and had this vision, and she contacted me to help her with, getting the word out. So I was, when she did her first voice of choice, she had talked to me a little bit about me talking and or speaking and sharing my story. But at the time I wasn't ready to share. So I continued as a background, helping with social media and whatnot. And then I just shared my story at the last Voice of Choice, which I probably still
together. So
so it's a group of women, and we have voice ambassadors that get up and share their story. And it's such an empowering movement. Just like-minded people, and it's amazing how when you tell your story and then all the people that come up to you and say, wow, that really helped me, and that, and you don't realize how, you do realize, I realize that sharing my story helps others. But there's another one, actually, Mia just announced April 3rd's coming up about letting go of your past. So, and like I said, I was not ready to share my story when I shared it, but I did, and I put it all out there. But once you're, there's that old adage, but once you can tell your story and not cry, you're healed.
Yeah.
I'm healed. But getting there, I made probably 90% of this interview not crying. So
yeah, nice work.
So Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the best business advice that you've been given? I guess you touched on your the encouragement that you got from your group.
Yeah.
And given that this is a side hustle for you and not, you haven't spent a lot of time in doing the big entrepreneurship side of that, but have you had any business advice or
Well,
even
I think, I don't know
advice?
per se advice from other people, but I think from my perspective is, maybe it was from Nike, just do it, right? Probably the best of it. There's no good time. So just, if you have a vision, just do it, and it'll work out the way it's supposed to work out, right? It might not be the vision in your mind, right? And yes, you should probably plan to do things if it's a big venture, but at the same time, sometimes there's so much planning in the world that, you just have to do it. Honestly.
Yeah. So if you were looking back, let's just say you ran into somebody who was you 7 years ago, what would be something you would want to share with her or tell her, specifically about the feeling stuck and moving forward and pivoting?
That's a big question. When I tell a lot of people in my breast cancer group that, you're stronger than you even give yourself credit for. And but it sounds so when I say it sometimes, because I'm on the other side of it and I did make it through, but when they're there, like you never think you're going to, but I think it's, there's, and again, more cliches, but you're only given as much as you can handle. Right. And the only way through, I'm such a cliche girl today, the only way to the other side is through. Right. So.
Yeah. Okay. So just to reframe that, then somebody who has been through it, survived and is feeling stuck, what would you
call? Teri Kerr, the Unstuck Duck. Yeah. Do that.
Perfect answer. Not what I was looking for, but it worked.
Okay. So honestly, you have to be, it's like you have to be ready for one. No one's going to make the change until they're ready. I was married to an alcoholic for 23 years. And, the last 13 years of our marriage, he was sober, but he wasn't ready, the first 10 years, right? So it's like anything. If you want to pivot, you have to be in a mindset to pivot and to make the choice that this is not where I want to be or do, right? So I can tell anybody anything, but until they're ready to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So how can our listeners find out more about you and your business and your story?
Facebook. So I'm the Multitasking Ninja on Facebook. I also have a blog that I haven't written in, I think, probably close to 2 years. But that my blog was, it was part of my healing journey. And I actually spent a month in Costa Rica and just sat on a beach and sat on a hammock and it was so therapeutic. And so my blog is Dancing Through the Fire. And it's on WordPress. I think it's Dancing Through the Fire blog, WordPress. But if you Google it, it'll come up. But yeah, so I didn't start writing it till I was through my journey. So it's kind of a look back, and I was happy I kept a journal through everything. So it's actually quite therapeutic to go back and read it too and go, holy, I did that. I went through that. Because sometimes when you're, 7 years out from it, you're kind of like, you forget. You'll never forget, but it's kind of, then you realize like, okay, yeah, that was some real stuff going on back then.
I'm always thankful for my Facebook memories.
Yes.
Because they help me to remember.
Yeah.
Like I had one time when I went to an appointment I went for an MRI, and it was my first one, and I didn't know where it was in the hospital. So I went to the medical imaging department thinking, it's a medical image, right? And it was 7:00 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
And there ended up, the people that were working there, they were short staffed. So they were like, take a number, take a number, take a number. So all of us took a number. And about 45 minutes later, they still hadn't called a number. And people were getting really antsy, and there ended up being a fist fight.
Oh
in
my
the
goodness.
medical imaging department. And this little old lady walks over to the lady. She's like, if you're not going to call a number, can you call security, please? And I wrote about it on my Facebook, but also in my blog. I had a blog that I kept through it. And I haven't really gone back to it, because I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. And I often think, well, maybe I'll pivot and kind of make that into something.
Yeah, and use it. And I do too. And I'm a strong believer that things happen for a reason. I had actually gone through Fiverr to see if I could find somebody that would take it and actually put it into like a Word document, because it was going to be way too much work. And I wanted to make it as part of my book that I'm planning on writing. And this guy never responded to my Fiverr request. And turns out it was, Christmas, he was away on holidays, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, that's, it's a classic. It's not time for me to get that done.
Right. Yeah.
So anyways, I just want to say thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we sign off?
No, I think you did an excellent job of all those poignant, hard questions. I hope I did them justice.
You did. Yeah. And I'm just so thankful. I mean, like I said at the beginning, it was my mom that put me onto you. And it's funny with my mom, she always gives me all kinds of advice, and I very rarely do I take it.
Yeah.
She's always got the best intentions, but I'm always one step ahead and going, whatever, Mom, and that was one piece that I took, and I'm just really thankful that we've
well, and it's like we do have my husband at the time went to school in Notre Dame with your husband, right? So it's kind of it's interesting the connections, and then and I mean, your dad through real estate as well, and it's and so many mutual friends when you look on Facebook, like, oh, how did we never do that, right? But
I know,
Comox girl, Courtney girl.
While I was sick,
Comox girl, Courtney girl,
because you're Terri with 2 R's and I'm Terri with 1. I would get tagged, or you would get tagged on my posts. Yeah, so that was really funny too. The constant, and we look the same.
Yeah, I know. We kind of have the same hairdo. Yeah.
Anyways, awesome. Thank you so much, Terri.